Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host, and welcome back to the Baseball Head. I hope you like this video. And hit that subscribe button. This is a major update, major update on the New York Mets and what's going on with their free agents. And it's quite surprising, quite frankly. Before we end this, need to, again, subscribe to this channel. It's the best Mets podcast on the internet. You get not just all the information you get everywhere else, but you get my sparkling personality and my humor, and that's a little more entertaining than some of the other monkey crap you find on here and anywhere else. But where do we start? All right, let's start at the top. Let's start at the top of all the way up the top of the totem pole, and that's Juan Soto. Juan Soto is New York Yankee free agent. He's the best free agent on the market. He is one of the best players in the game. One of the best players, probably the best hitter of his generation. And he's 26 years old. He just turned 26 years old. And he is a free agent. And he's played for a lot of teams so far in his young career. Started with the Nationals. Then he got traded to the Padres. And then this past year, he played for the New York Yankees and got them to the World Series. And he has done everything he could possibly do to basically, he's getting awfully close. If you look at him, he's almost getting close to being a Hall of Famer. That's how good he is talent-wise. Knows how to work a count, can hit anybody's best pitchers. He is excellent. He's terrific. Now the big update, and we know that the Mets have talked to him already. They let it be known that they're very interested in him. But here's the new update. Ding, 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 ding. The new update is that the Mets are going to meet him, and particularly the Mets owner, Steve Cohen's going to meet him next week in California. And that is a big thing because really we don't see Steve going to meet too many players this early in the process. The only time that he's met a player in free agency over the last few years was, of course, Yoshinobu Yamamoto last year. When he went all the way to Japan. So this is a serious pitch by the Mets and the ownership of this club, that the fact that Steve is willing to go all the way to meet him this early in the process tells you how serious the Mets are. I would assume and I would think that Dave Stearns will be with him, and probably a contingent of the club will go and meet him next week in California and meet with the agent. So that is the first bit of news that the Mets were, according to reports, the first team to reach out to him when he hit free agency on Monday. So everything is lined up now for the Mets to talk to him. There's also, just so you know, a rumor going around the Dodgers to talk to him as well. I don't know what the Yankees' stance is in this whole thing. I would think they'd want him back, but so far we haven't really heard too much about the Yankees in these first 3 days of free agency. So just keep that in mind. The Yankees are always there. But the way he was talking after the season was over for the Yankees, he was talking about the Yankees in the past tense, which I thought was very interesting. And that's something to keep an eye on. But again, the big news is the Mets are going to meet with him, particularly the Mets ownership. And also, and I read this on X from an account called Mike Rodriguez. He said that the Mets co-owner, Alex Cohen, is very excited for him. She really wants the Mets to sign him. So she's all jacked up about the Mets making an offer for him and getting him here. She likes the way he plays. And he's just he's got a great personality, as you know. Bubbly personality. It's the best way to describe how he is. Great joy when he plays and he's on the field. So that was it. Now, I mentioned Mike Rodriguez. This is the other major update in this video. I had done a video earlier today at 12 o'clock about Willie Adames. Now, Willie Adames has been basically connected to the Los Angeles Dodgers and a little bit with the San Francisco Giants. I've been talking about Adames signing with the Dodgers since last offseason, because I felt that he was a fit for them, because they don't have a shortstop. Even though they won World Series, they didn't have. I mean, they had Tommy Edman, but he's not really a full-fledged shortstop. And I thought that he was going to go there. Now the rumor, according to Mike Rodriguez, who is an MLB insider, I should mention, as well as a guy that worked in the Spanish broadcast with the Chicago Cubs, he said on X, and I'm on X. If you want to follow me on X, follow me at the Baseball Hut. I'll put the link in the description of this video. You'll see that I reposted it. And he said that the Mets had made an offer to Willie Adames. Now, what's interesting about that offer is the Mets want him not to play shortstop, because he's been a shortstop his whole career with the Rays and with the Brewers, but that the Mets want him to play third base. Now, what's interesting about that is the rumor is if they bring in Adames to play third, they would have Mark Vientos to play first. Now, before we get into the ramifications of that, the offer is, according to Mike Rodriguez, the Mets have offered him 7 years for $160 million. Keep in mind, he's 28 years old. So he's in the middle, he's at the very beginning of his prime. Also keep in mind that David Stern traded for him in the middle of the 2021 season. Picked him up from the Rays in trade. So this is a general manager that knows this player really well. The Mets want him to play third. Now, he has this offer supposedly on the table, and the Mets want him to play third. He is mulling it over. He's unsure of whether he wants to play with the Mets, not because he doesn't want to play with the Mets, but because he's not sure if he wants to play third. Because he feels that he can still play. He still wants to play shortstop. So just keep that in mind. So if he doesn't come here, it's not because of the offer, but more because he doesn't want to play third. That's another thing. So what does this mean for the Mets? And particularly with Adames. As you know, there's a thing called the domino effect. One thing affects this thing and affects this thing. So if I do a video on whatever, like on Willie Adames, that will affect this, it will affect that. It'll affect a person in New Jersey. And that will affect this and affect that. And that will affect somebody in Puerto Rico watching one of my videos. And that will affect that. And then, of course, sometimes it'll come back to me. It'll affect your host. That's the domino principle in effect. So the domino principle in this situation with Adames going the third and Mark Vientos, and I think you know where this is going, is that with Vientos going the first, that means that Pete Alonso's time here with the Mets is done. I believe, and this is just my own opinion, I said this during the season at times, that the chances that Pete was going to come back here was at a minimum. It wasn't very good. When the Mets got the postseason, he's hit home runs like crazy, especially against the Brewers. I thought that the chances of him coming back were high. Now, David Stearns, last week, I was getting this impression that the Mets have the open door with Pete. However, they will move on if they have to. So if they find some kind of option that is better for them long term, an option that David Stearns feels is appropriate for the club, they will move on. If they don't make the moves they need to make or the moves they want to make, Pete goes and gets an offer from another team, comes back to the Mets, and he says, can you match that offer? I'd like to come back. If they say no, he'll move on. If they say, okay, we'll match it, he'll stay. But from what I could tell, from my own opinion, my own impression, I don't expect Pete to be back. Because they've been so aggressive, supposedly, after just 3 days that this story has gotten out about Adames getting this offer from the Mets. It's telling me that they want to move on. That Stearns does not want to resign Pete. He doesn't want to give him the money that he wants and the years that he wants. I think basically because he's not a premium position. And one thing about Adames is if he's been a shortstop, shortstops tend to be very adaptable. You can move them around. You move them to second, you can move them to third, you can move them in the outfield, you can move them to first base. Pete, you can't move him anywhere. Okay, you can only have him at first base and DH. So that's not a lot of mobility there. So just off the sort of the reading of the tea leaves and just sort of seeing where this team is going, I believe that we saw the last game of Pete Alonso's career with the Mets. And it's disappointing because I do like the player. I like him a lot. He's a good guy. But I have faith in Stearns that he'll build a team that has a chance to win a World Series. So that's the most important thing. So here's the thing. And also as well, these moves, and if they were to sign Soto, so say they sign Adames, they sign Soto, that will give the Mets a lot of flexibility in the trade market. Okay? Gives them tons of flexibility. I think they have a lot of flexibility anyway in the trade market. They have a lot of good young positional players. They have a couple of veteran players that they can move. If they bring in Soto, if they bring in Adames, the next move would be, several moves would be trading Starling Marte and trading Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil has 2 more years on his contract. Money's not too crazy, but he's a little overpriced for what he's done over the last few years. Starling Marte has a 1-year deal. I can see the Mets in both cases eating some of the money and getting them out of here and then moving on. Also keep in mind, the Mets need a center fielder. I'll give you players in the Mets farm system that could really help them out a lot. He needs more time. He had a tough year this year. He's had an injury. And that's Drew Gilbert. He's playing really well in the Arizona Fall League. That's a kid that could play in center field. I don't know how he is defensively. I know he's got a tremendous arm as an outfielder. That's the one thing I've read. He was a 2-way player in high school, so he has a very good arm. And he's really an everyday player that could be a role player here. Now, the Mets at second base, if they were to move McNeil, they can go with all these kids that they have that don't get moved. There is another rumor going out there that the White Sox are going to move Garrett Crochet. They're looking for young positional players. Okay, let's have Jet Williams they can move, Luis Acuna they can move, Ronnie Mauricio, Brett Beatty, and they're all very close to the majors. Brett Beatty, he sent him to Chicago with the White Sox. They're terrible. So go and send him there. He'll have a chance to play. That'll also tell you, folks, that the Mets are moving away from him as well. So this is the sort of domino effect that the Adames move would have on the organization in terms of some of the personnel here. Not only won't they move on from Pete, but they would move on from Beatty because Beatty's not, in my view, he's not played the outfield much. He's been a third baseman, and they need everything. I mean, the White Sox, they need everything they can get. But Garrett Crochet is on the horizon because I've seen his name connected to the Mets in a few places. The Mets and the Red Sox are connected heavily with Crochet. They're 2 teams that have a lot of positional players in their minor leagues that could really help the White Sox out. But those are, I'm just mentioning Crochet. I've done a video on him. And obviously he would be starting. Also, and this has sort of been mentioned here and there, that I get the sense just from things I've read and just what I've noticed specifically from last year, that Dave Stearns does not have an appetite for giving long-term contracts to pitchers. So I'm rather dubious as to whether they'll give a long-term contract to a guy, say, like Corbin Burns, who seems, just I was watching before, that his strikeout totals, his whiff rates have dropped. So that is something, I don't know if they have that appetite, if he has that appetite to give a lot of money to a sort of a 30-year-old pitcher. And then maybe they'll more be in tune to maybe re-signing Manaea and giving Severino the qualifying offer, and he accepts it, and moving on from there, and maybe trying to find a way of bringing in pitchers that they did last year. I don't know if I want to do that, but I can see Stearns doing that. But this is the major update for you in a concise video, in a concise way. Hope you like this video, share this video, and of course, hit the subscribe button. The more you subscribe to the channel, the more people watch. It brings in more revenue to the channel. And of course, I take super thanks in here. As one just saying thank you. There's a little button with a heart and a dollar sign on it. You hit that button. Again, you'll send me a nice donation for the channel. So it's a great way to support the channel. And we're getting close to Christmas. I expect us to have a huge year next year. It is going to be a great year. So many ways. So, please, again, I want to thank you for coming by. Please, again, I want to mention this before I go. I appreciate the time you take to watch these videos. It means a lot to me, it means a lot to my family, and I thank you for everything. And of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut, and I'll see you later.